Hi, I'm Janny. In this video I'm going to be making a temporary wedding ring for a friend of mine to tide them over until they can get their actual ring resized. We decided to go with a walnut bentwood ring because I've made a couple of those in the past. But this time I decided I was going to make my own veneers on the bandsaw. Let me show you how I did it. The first step was to grab some walnut and cut some thin sheets at the bandsaw using a 4 tooth per inch ripping blade. Blade alignment is paramount for this, so I spent the time beforehand to get it set up perfectly. Another key aspect is to keep the feed rate slow and steady to reduce the tool marks and keep them consistent. Pausing can result in a gouge in the wood at that point. Not bad, but still way too thick. I tried using the orbital sander to thin down the sheet, but this was slow going. Giving up with that, I tried the belt sander, but with the same results. So I cut the sheet into thin strips, as I was going to have to do it at some point anyway, and then I tried to get creative. I set up this terrible looking jig on the pillar drill and tried to emulate a drum sander. Maybe this would work with decent sandpaper, but this setup did basically nothing at all. Finally, I resigned myself to the fact that I was going to have to use the thicknesser, but I knew that it wouldn't go down that thin, so I found a piece of scrap wood to act as a carrier piece. To stop the thin veneers from being ripped apart by the thicknesser blades, I cut a ramp on each end of the scrap piece, and then used double-sided tape to attach the walnut strips. If I hadn't done this, then the blades would have probably lifted the leading edge and then just shredded the entire strip. They are so much more flexible after being thinned down. But the ends are going to have to be removed as they never touch the thicknesser blades, so they're still just as thick as they were before. Then it was into the kitchen to soak the strips in hot water for half an hour until they were nice and pliable. After soaking, the strips were super flexible and were wrapped into loops of roughly the right size and held in masking tape to dry overnight. When they were dry, I sanded a taper on one end to make sure that the inside seam was going to be as smooth as possible, and then found a round piece of wood to be my mandrel. This needed to be the perfect size, so masking tape was used to fine-tune the fit, and then parcel tape was put over the top of that to stop any glue from sticking to the mandrel. Then it was a case of slowly sticking the strips down, using CA glue, being really careful not to leave any gaps. I found that a single strip made a ring that was far too thin, so I smoothed the outside of it on the lathe and then added another layer using the exact same process. Once that was dry, the ring was then ready for shaping. Firstly, the outside face was flattened using a scraper. Then it was cut to width with the parting tool, and then finally the round contour was made using the scraper. With the shaping finished, I sanded up to 400 grit on the outside, and then did the same on the inside of the ring. Since this ring is only meant to be temporary, I went with the Danish oil finish, diluting the first coat with white spirit for better penetration. For a more hard-wearing ring, people often use CA glue as a film finish, but I think that the Danish oil is going to stand up just fine for this. Your martini, sir? After it had soaked for half an hour, I buffed off the excess with blue roll. I did this 3 more times, leaving it to dry between coats. In the end, I made 3 rings, one at the specified size, one half a size over and one half a size under, just to be 100% certain that one of them fitted perfectly. I think these came out really nicely in the end, but more importantly, my friend is really happy with them, and that is a measure of success.